There is no judgment. Oh, how he loves me. I've got a friend. He is my strength. He is my portion. He's with me in the valley, with me in the fire, with me in the storm. Let all my life testify, hallelujah. We are not alone. God really loves us. God really loves us. Hallelujah. Oh, praise my soul. God really loves us. God really loves us. His mercy's enough. His grace is sufficient. So come if you need it, forgiveness and healing. His mercy's enough. Yeah. And this is our hope. The cross it is spoken. Death is no more. Christ is the Lord. Oh, this is our hope. Hallelujah. We are not alone. God really loves us. God really loves us. Hallelujah. Oh, praise my soul. God really loves us. God really loves us. Y'all ready? We sing, oh. We sing, what a father, what a friend, what a savior he is, yeah. What a father, what a friend, what a savior he is, hallelujah. We are yeah, hallelujah. Oh, praise my soul. God really loves us. God really loves us. Oh, what a father, what a friend, what a savior he is, yeah. What a father, what a friend, what a savior he is, Jesus. What a father, what a friend, what a savior he is. Sing it, church. Yes, one more time we sing. Yes, Jesus. What a father, what a friend, what a savior he
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening, live stream, folks. I think they're on, Jeremy. We're just up here talking, having a good time. I'm going to turn this phone off because there are people who will try to catch you with your phone on. Yeah, Gordon Dasher used to try to, he would call me during a sermon when I was preaching just to try to, and of course I never worked because I always had my phone off, but then on the way home from church, I would just text him, good try. Good try, Gordon. Good try. Welcome, everybody. By the way, I just want to continue to thank you for your generosity for folks here as well as our live stream members. Thank you so much for giving to Turkey. The earthquake situation over there it's just devastating. And but we've got some great brothers and sisters on the ground. They're working, and we are hearing from them every day about different things that are happening, good things in terms of the kingdom, of course, devastating things in terms of life and trying to take care of folks. But I think we're over $96,000 have been raised so far. What? We're over 100,000 now. Okay. Hey, got 100, but I give me five. So we'll raise some more money. So praise the Lord for that. We give Him the glory, and we know that more and more people get. And look, we're in it for the long haul with the brothers and sisters over there. It's gonna take a long time. Also, there's ongoing work with the Ukraine, and so we're still doing some things there, and so it's just exciting that to see how God's people step up to the opportunities and situations that people are in, and so we're grateful to the Lord for that. All right, you notice there's nobody up here singing with me. That's a scary thing, but we're not going to do a lot tonight because we've got kind of a lot to go over. So we're going to let's stand. We'll sing everybody else on in that's coming in, and then we'll get some folks up there to visit them. Okay. I'm in the way, the bright and shining way. Well, I'm in the glory land way, telling the world that Jesus saves today. Yes, I'm in the glory land way. Well, I'm in the glory land way. Hey, I'm in the glory land way. Well, heaven is nearer and the way groweth clearer far. I'm in the glory land way. Well, I'm in the glory land way. Hey, I'm in the glory land way. Well, heaven is nearer and the way groweth clearer far. I'm in the glory land way. And the church said, Amen. And the church said, that's enough. Okay, that's enough of me. Ryan Lee, Robert Abels, where are y'all at? Come on up. They thought I was going to do this by myself at the beginning, but I'm tired of being up here by myself. These microphones are marked. Y'all can sit down if you want to. Man. No, standing. I got the microphone marked red. I'll give the purple one for Robert on purpose.
I guess I'll take yellow. Ooh, yellow's
LSU.
good.
Purple and gold. Yeah.
No, that's a yellow. This is yellow.
That's
Okay.
purple
and gold.
Well, all of us in One Kingdom ministry, that's your ministry. It's this church's mission ministry. And to give you a little history, years ago, actually we're fixing to celebrate how many years?
60.
60 years of world radio ministry, which is now a part of One Kingdom Outreach. We're going to celebrate 60 years in the fall. That's taken us all over the world. And so we've been fortunate enough to travel to these places, and some of these guys that we've worked with for years and years, like Prudencio and the Dominican and other guys that we've been involved with for a long time. And we've recently took 2 trips at once. I went to Lima, Peru. These guys went to 3 different countries in Africa. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
And a lot of, how many plane rides?
So it was 10 total plane rides, 45 hours in the air. 3 nights we spent in the air.
Just the fact that all your planes made it is.
We not only were all 10 flights on time, a couple of them were early.
So that's prayer answered right there. That is prayer answered. I only had 6 flights, so.
You had 6 flights?
Yeah, 3 there and 3 back.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. But in Lima, Peru, we have a guy named Rodolfo. Let's see, we got a picture, I think, of him up there. Well, welcome home, Rodolfo. There you go. This is his family. I visited there, I think, 10 years ago, was it, Robert, with this family, and he had a church started there, and I'm telling you, that church today is now still full of young people. Teenagers I had met then are now the youth minister. And let's go to the next slide. I'm not sure how many we got. This is actually an area that he went, had a group go and plant a house church. And they finally got a little building in a poor area of Lima. Lima is like 11 plus million. To drive from our hotel to his place took an hour, and you were still in Lima. Okay? And it wasn't because we had a slow vehicle. It was that big. Another place we were at, let's go to the next slide, guys. Some kids. Kids just grab your heart, don't they? To see these kids learning the gospel at such a young age and to see this planted there. Let's go to one more, I think. Is there another one? Here we go. This took my heart back to Camp Chilka because these kids are out at a camp, these teenagers. Over half the teenagers that were there had no Christian background whatsoever, and that church had just reached out and brought them there. The hospitality, like we experience all over the world, was fantastic, and the church is alive and well there, and it's growing, and they couldn't do it without knowing they're a part of something bigger. So they send their greetings. Rodolfo and his family send greetings to this church, and I want to just say thank you for the support. It's not just a money thing. I mean, it's a spiritual thing where we're together talking. He now has a couple of elders at his church now that's developed over the years, and so it's just a great blessing to go to these places and see the work God is doing. So that was one place that we experienced in the last week, and I flew back in on a Wednesday night late, I don't know, 11:30, got in the bed or something, got up the next day and went to the men's retreat.
Where you got a lot of sleep at too? I'm sure you got a lot of sleep at the men's retreat.
And a lot of rest, but it ain't
a good place to catch up. One of the things that I really enjoyed about your stories in Peru were the discipleship aspect that Rodolfo is really focused on. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, because he said, one of the things he said, he'd seen congregations get started there in the past, and then something would happen to the preacher. He would move or leave or couldn't stay, and then the church would just disappear. And he said, I don't want my church to be like that. So I'm going to pour myself into discipleship, raising up leaders that can, in turn, take over this church no matter what happens to me. And that's the Timothy principle. That's committing what you know to faithful men who can teach other people. And that's what we're about. We want to empower guys in their own culture to raise up leadership and keep the thing going. And you're right, Ryan. That's exactly. I'm impressed with his consciousness of that. He keeps consistently doing that. He's not about trying to make just a big splash and get a bunch of people around in a building. He's really into making sure they make disciples that make disciples. Yeah. So tell us about Africa.
So we, as you mentioned before, we went to 3 different countries. I'm
gonna sit down and listen because you don't need me up here anymore.
Yeah. I know you're tired from the retreat.
You young guys, I can handle. Robert and I can handle. Robert, can we handle it?
Piece of cake.
Oh, ain't. It's just like eating lettuce.
Don't make any old jokes on Mike's expense.
Like eating lettuce, ain't nothing to it.
These are classic preacher lettuce jokes, salad jokes. It was kind of neat, and that's why I wanted to ask about Rodolfo and discipleship, because that seemed to be the theme for us too. was discipleship everywhere we went. So we started our journey. It was an 8-day trip, and it was a little bit of a grind, but me and Pops, we like to grind a little bit. So we started off, we flew to Accra, Ghana, where we met our good friend Sam Twamasi Ankara and George Akpabli. And so you've got these two men are, in my mind, just spiritual giants. I consider Sam is on the left here, and George is on the right. Sam, I consider to be one of my elders. He's actually, if you remember, last May he came here and preached as a guest speaker, and actually will be coming back here this May, and we're hoping to be able to share some time with Whites Fair Road as well. But Sam's one of my favorite people on the planet. He is the president of Heritage Christian College, which we'll talk about in a second. But he's standing there next to George Akpabli. And you want to talk a little bit about George?
He and George have known each other 40-plus years, and they were boyhood friends. There was a school of preaching that Mike and some others from here kind of helped start and teach in years ago. And these guys went to, I don't know if it was that school or one much like it in Ghana, and they were classmates. And so the idea was not just to raise up preachers in Ghana, but all of West Africa. And so George is actually a missionary to a neighboring country of Benin, which is French-speaking. And he had to learn French, which he did. He's helped start a school there. He was the one that brought the church there. There was not a church there at that time. And so he brought a church and started
He's actually, one of the cool stories we heard from Sam, because George would never tell you this because he's too humble, but Sam said George Akpabli back in 1991, 1992 is really solely responsible for the Church of Christ being in Benin. He went there, he just had it on his heart to go into the mission field and left Ghana and went to Benin. Again, I want to reiterate, Benin is a French-speaking country, and George knew zero French. Yeah. He actually went there, and there was a friend of his that was a government official, and he asked this government official for help, and the government official, he kind of laughed him out, right? He kind of like, this isn't going to last. But a couple, 2-3 years later, when he saw the fruits of George's faithfulness, he realized that he was serious and went all out to help him. And now there's a fruitful ministry in Benin, which, Robert, you want to tell them a little bit about what our plans in August?
Yeah, and there are 22 different French-speaking countries in Africa, most of them in West Africa. And we have a lot of world radio speakers there. But it's difficult to communicate because they don't speak any English and we don't speak any French. And so we're going to meet them. There's some of their teaching and some of their theology we have a little concern with, and it may be unfounded concern. You don't know till you go or till they come and find out. But we want to be able to go and just teach and show them what's worked for us here and find out what's working for them and what's not, and just be with them. And so the goal is to get a lot of those countries to come in to the school and us be there with them for a few days.
So we'll be in Benin in August of this year to be with George, who is our French-speaking Africa ambassador. And so George oversees those 22 nations for One Kingdom to help disciple those men and women who are working in those countries, but then also to give us feedback, be a liaison to One Kingdom to help us know where there's opportunity for growth, where there's been challenges, and we need to maybe problem solve. And so we're all going to get to be together and just fellowship together, learn from each other, and encourage one another. And we're really excited about that trip. But while we were in Ghana, we couldn't miss these two guys, but we had a little bit extra time. We wanted to go see Heritage Christian College, which Sam is the president of. And Sam started this school. He had a dream for this school back in the mid-90s. And his vision was he wanted to create a Christian university that would be the flagship Christian university for all of Africa. So when we think of like flagship universities for Christian universities, I think of course, I'm an alum of Harding University, go Bisons. There's Lipscomb University, also go Bisons. I don't know how that happened. You've got ACU, you've got Pepperdine, but you have all these universities that we think of as pillars in our Christian education system. Sam wanted that same thing. Sam is actually a graduate of ACU. Did he? I think grad work at ACU, or got his doctorate there. And so he wanted to have like an ACU or a Harding in Africa. And so he had this dream, and he started this school back in the late 90s. And now you look at it, and it is rocking and rolling. They just got accredited, by the way. Kathy Davenport, I had mentioned your name, by the way, and we probably need to have another conversation offline. But they just got accredited for a nursing degree at Heritage, which they are so excited about. And so they're looking for adjunct professors. Put you on the spot in front of everybody.
We did kind of volunteer you a little bit.
Yeah. So I hope you got your passport ready. Dennis, pack your bags. Retirement's going to look good on you guys, I promise. Yeah. We're getting off the rails here. Just kidding, but not. But they just got accredited for nursing. They do a lot of IT. So in Africa, a lot of job opportunities are in information technology. Internet and web opportunities are a little bit slower than they lag a little bit behind what we are. So some of the developed technologies that we're accustomed to, they're still working on. So there's a lot of opportunities in information technology. So they've got several degrees there. There's also a Bible college there. It is really, really an impressive university. They've got they've got a lot of Ghanaian professors, but they also have some American professors who have come, and they're living in Ghana to work at the school and teach in their respective fields, which is pretty neat. So really, really great school, and we wanted to share. So what you're seeing here, there's Papa Bear in the red. If you couldn't tell, it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, But so this is to the left in the blue. That is Conrad. Conrad is, when we first started visiting Heritage, he was the assistant to Sam, and kind of like his apprentice, if you will. And now he's running the whole media department for Heritage, which I'll also add in that the media department there, they have a TV program where they preach the gospel. They talk about Christian education and other relevant topics, and they are they're in 23 nations, and they're in 5 million different homes from this little campus. So talk about being the flagship Christian university. They are on their way to doing this. So really, really cool stuff. So Conrad is over that whole media department now, and you can see him here sharing with us. There's a new building that's going up. You can see there, this is going to be the entrepreneurship building. One of the things that Heritage is really impressed upon on their students is you need to create for yourself. God has given you everything that you need around you for you to flourish. You don't need to depend on anybody else. You can go out and create. You're made in the image of the Creator, which means you can also then create. And so they have created an entrepreneurship program where they're encouraging students to start their own businesses, invent new processes. And in fact, you want to share the deal? You want me to do it?
You can do it.
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm diplomatic enough.
Okay, I'll try to. So you'll get that in a second when I explain this. So several years ago, about 3 students, they formed a team, and they joined, or they entered into a contest actually in San Diego, California. And it was an entrepreneurship contest where you had to start your own business. And so these 3 young men that were Heritage students at the time, they invented a process to turn human excrement into charcoal. Now, stay with me here. Right? Yeah.
That's why I didn't say.
Yeah, that's why I was. You let me handle that, right?
I didn't know that big word like it.
Yeah, we got other words like to describe that are probably less nice in this setting. But they learned how to take basically human waste and process that out of it, clean it, filter it, and then create charcoal. Now, the reason why this is needed is, one, most of the sewage waste in Ghana is just dumped either into the ocean or into a sewage, like a sewage dump, and it's just horrible for the environment. Not only that, the trees, now let me back up, most people in Ghana still cook in either an indoor kitchen or an outdoor kitchen, and they use charcoal. Okay, so charcoal is a much needed resource in Ghana. But because of the trees, they've been thinned out. Everybody uses charcoal, so really there is a little bit of a shortage of trees. So now charcoal is kind of hard to come by, and it's become expensive. So these three young men entered into a contest. They created a process in order to turn human excrement into charcoal. They go to this contest in San Diego, and they win it. They like the whole. I mean, this is a worldwide contest at a university in San Diego, and they win the contest. Not only did they win that, all the entries had to vote on like the crowd favorite, if you will. They win that one too, so they won a total of like $30,000 to start a business. Pretty cool. So Sam tells us about this, and we're like, yes, we're in too. And so we helped out a little bit as well, and what was really neat was when we were there, we saw the charcoal factory in process. There it was going. So really cool to see. That was we found out about that in 2017. So here it is in 2023, about 6 years later, and they got the factory, they've got the whole thing, it's running and it's going. And it's one of those cool moments where you actually get to see the fruit, being produced later on. It was really, really neat to see.
Yeah, one thing about Benin before we go forward is, Kathy and I had a nephew who went to Benin for a while, and first I ever heard of the place. I didn't even know it existed, and it was so hard that he came home for a graduation, and he was so sick and so thin and just malnourished that his dad, who's here tonight, talked him into staying, not going back. So my view of Benin was like, man, I don't want to ever go there, but then I guess I'm going to go anyway. So, yeah. And actually, our nephew had his picture took with George when he was there years ago. They made a connection. So, just a neat little side story. But then we went on to took another plane ride and went to Liberia, and we wanted to go there because one of our partners is so, I mean, it means so much to us, is a fellow named Isaac Day, and Isaac's been sick, and he can't find out why. He can't sleep, and he can't eat, and so he's down to about 100 pounds, and so we wanted to go see him, pray with him, try to encourage him. But we found out some good news while we were in Ghana, that there was someone they knew there that had the same sort of problem, and they found help. And so we were pointing them to that. And the good news is they're going to be going in a few days to seek that help, hopefully restart his brain and get him started again, because it seems like it's not physical, it seems to be mental. And so we're just hopeful, and I would appreciate you guys praying for us. This is such a good man, I mean, there's nobody I've ever met just like him. He's just an exuberant evangelist and lover of God and lover of people. So,
one of the visions that the Holy Spirit gave Isaac many years ago was to start a school, a preaching school. Now, if you go to Africa, and Robert, you can attest to this too, but when you go to Africa, you can drive down the road and you can see a preaching school after a preaching school after you just drive by a bunch of them, and most of them are abandoned because it starts off great, and then really at the end of the day it really depends on American support to keep those going, because there's not a lot of money in preaching, right Mike? I'm just kidding. But it's obviously a tougher situation in Africa. And Isaac said, okay, but the way to do that is not to depend on American support, is to teach them, just like in Ghana, that you have everything around you to flourish. Use what you have to make what you need, right? So he started this school called Restoration Bible and Agriculture Institute. And this school is a preaching school. It's a 2-year program where they teach you Bible, they teach you how to evangelize, they teach you discipleship, but they also teach you agriculture. They teach you farming. They teach you how to start and maintain a farm. Many of you guys have heard the story. Many of you guys have seen some of the successes that have come out of here. And the idea was, I'm going to teach these men how to preach the word and to start a church, plant a church, and plant a garden. Okay? And so what's happening is they're starting a church, and they're also starting some agriculture work so that the agriculture will help support them, and then they're not so dependent on American support. Sure, we still need to help out, but our goal is, it's kind of counterproductive, you wouldn't think this, but our goal in Liberia is to not be in Liberia. Which doesn't, it sounds kind of odd, right? But we want them to be so self-sustaining that they don't need any more help, right? And so that was the dream that Isaac had, and he's done such a great job with it. It's flourishing. The school is fantastic. They've also started a trade school for women. A lot of the women over there come from difficult circumstances. A lot of their women, just like in America, put their identity in their man, and then when the man leaves, or if the man is abusive, then they're kind of left with, okay, who am I? What do I do? I don't know how to even survive. And so this school takes a lot of these women and teaches them skills, teaches them fashion design, whether that's sewing or tailoring, or how to start their own business. And they give them the tools and the equipment to start their own little business that they can support their family on. And it's a really, really cool program. So that's going on that campus as well. But with Isaac being sick, it's one of the things that Mike talked about, like sometimes if there's, a person that is running a ministry and they become sick, or they move away, or they die, sometimes the ministry fails. But as you can see behind us in this picture, that's not what's going to happen here. Because there are a lot of good men and good women here in Liberia that are for this dream and that have come to rally in support of this ministry. If you look left to right, we've got Isaac Jr. That's Isaac Day's son. Of course, Robert's in there. Hannah is Isaac's daughter, and she's standing next to her mama, Fatu. There's Isaac, and then to the left, or to Isaac's left, and next to me is Maxwell Way, and I'm going to talk about him in a second, along with Robert Choloplay and his wife, and Edmund Borfe. And I'm going to let Robert talk about those last two, but I want to talk about Maxwell for a second here. Maxwell, he's the guy standing next to me in the striped shirt. And he was working at a different school. He's been friends with Isaac for a long time, has helped out with RBAI, but he saw Isaac in need and said, I want to help. I want to be there. I want to step in. I want to stand in the gap. And the school had to take a year off because of Isaac's absence. And Maxwell has stepped in to rejuvenate that, get it back going, and has actually also said, it's not going to be me, it's actually going to be Isaac Jr. that's going to head the school. And so in the most humble way possible, he said, look, we're here to help with this school, and we're going to let Isaac Jr., we're going to support Isaac Jr. to be the administrator, and we're going to stand behind him and support him in a true discipleship fashion, which I thought was really cool. So that school they've already recruited a new class for this school year. It is already March, so it'll open up. Their semester will start this month, which is really cool.
And one thing about Maxwell, he's been here a couple times. He's been here and stayed in our home. Maxwell was one of the only ones up there that didn't get asylum somewhere else when the war broke out. They had 17-year civil war, and it was so destructive. It was like gang warfare. There's no infrastructure. There's no electricity. Still, only about 10% of the country has electricity. Maxwell stayed. They battled starvation. They battled just every day being feared for their life. They had a daughter that starved. She just didn't have enough to eat, and she died from just starvation. And so to me, Maxwell's a quiet, soft-spoken brother, but he's a hero to me, and I just really thank God for him and his humility and just his leadership. So,
And now to Maxwell's left is a couple that you may recognize their name, Robert and Cholo Play. So for those of you live streamers, Robert Cholo Play is always in our chat. Is maybe even watching right now and mixing it up with you guys. So if you've never put a face to the name, that's Robert. And Robert actually met Robert Cholo Play back in a trip back in 2020. And he has been responsible for sending young men to Isaac to go in the school. So he brings up these young men, disciples them, and then sends them to the school to get preaching knowledge so they can plant church. So he is a disciple maker, deluxe. And then Edmund Borfa, you want to talk about Edmund a little bit?
Edmund
journey?
and his family asylum to the United States 25 years ago, and became citizens. They're American citizens. And he has a daughter in the Air Force, a son that's a college graduate that's in business. But his heart was still in Liberia, and so he forsook a comfortable life in Virginia and moved back to Liberia 3 or 4 years ago. He's a great evangelist, a very good Bible teacher, just a humble man of God that loves his people. Ken Bolden knew him well when he was there, and he was highly recommended by Ken. But he's just a fantastic man, and someone we're really, really grateful for that just had the courage and to go back and minister to his own people. So thankful for him.
I'm even more impressed with Edmund because he gave up. He was here for how long? 15 years or something like that, and then decided to go back because he loved his country so much. If you've ever been to Liberia, you understand why that's a big deal. Because Liberia is not the most fun place. It's like Robert said, the country's been ravaged by civil war. When he talks about no electricity like that, that's a real thing. Like the ones that have only have it during the day, and then it gets shut off at night. Most people run everything off a generator, so they've got to get gas everywhere, and it is a really difficult place. But the people there are such loving people. If you know a little bit about the history of Liberia, Liberia was actually started from freed American slaves. Okay, this dates back into past around Civil War time. Everything they fashioned their country kind of off of American principles. Their flag is red, white, and blue with stars and stripes, and they run off the dollar. This is a really a fun people. I really love the Liberian people.
Yeah, they have a state of Tennessee, a state of Louisiana.
That's right.
Capital city is Monrovia, after President Monroe, who was president when all that took place. And so the ruling class for many years has been the freed slaves. They call them Amerigo Liberians. They're tribal people there. There's like 16 different tribes. But the ruling class, and part of the problem, has been the Amerigo Liberians who were freed slaves from America. So they did what they knew, and they started enslaving people when they went there, and it's just been chaotic ever since then. So part of the problem.
Interesting note about Liberia as well, too. Their food is really, really good.
Yeah.
If you like Cajun food, then you like Liberian food, because we through Haiti, we Louisianians got our food, our Cajun food, kind of from that region. So if you're ever in Liberia and they offer you jollof rice, that's jambalaya. If someone asks you if you want some beef stew, that's gumbo. So say yes. You will like it.
It's good.
So after Liberia, where'd we go next, Pops?
We went to Kenya, a beautiful country on the other side of the continent.
That was another overnight flight, right?
Another overnight flight.
Neither of us slept on it.
And then we got and landed in the capital city of Nairobi and took a prop plane, which I hadn't rode on in years. The hugest prop plane I've ever been on. It was an hour flight, like from here to Dallas up country.
Takeoff was a little dicey on that one, I remember. A little bit of this.
It was a little bit shaky.
Yeah.
And it was, we went to the town of Eldoret and met Charles Chariot, who was our East Africa ambassador, and just a fantastic person. He's been here several times. We also have some of our Celebrate Recovery guys went to Kenya several years ago and started
10 years ago.
Yeah, started a Celebrate Recovery, and it's really flourished under the oversight of Charles and a young lady named Sophie. Some of you may have heard of her. But man, just on very little knowledge, very little education, very little training is the right word. She just, with God's help, they took off and made it flourish. And so Celebrate Recovery in Kenya is really good. So
I want to share a little bit about that. First of all, when you go to Eldoret, we go to their church. It's the Pioneer Church of Christ. And they have a sign outside, Pioneer Church of Christ. And under it says the One Kingdom Mission Center, which is kind of neat because they operate a lot of their World Radio program from there, a lot of their other missions from there. And then underneath that, they have a schedule of events. And it says Thursday, 6:30, Celebrate Recovery. So it's just kind of neat. I shared that with our staff this morning, with our local church staff and with our One Kingdom staff. I said it was just kind of neat because they're doing their own thing, but you can see that they're like our sister church, right? You know, like you look at our website, it's going to say, hey, Whites Ferry Road Church of Christ, One Kingdom Ministries, Friday nights, Celebrate Recovery, 7 o'clock. You know, like they're just like us. I mean, they've taken a page, and if I could kind of share how that started, in 2013, 10 years ago, a small group from here, including Josh Hudnall, Mike Colvin, Chad Johnson, they went to Kenya and met with Charles and introduced the idea of Celebrate Recovery to this church. And it kind of went okay. It was like, okay, we might be interested in this, but you understand that Celebrate Recovery is not easy, right? It was not easy for us when it started. Like, what does Celebrate Recovery involve? Like some real vulnerability. You know, hey, I'm struggling with a drug addiction or alcoholism or anger or pride or whatever. I've got these hurts, habits, and hang-ups. That's not an easy thing for anybody. Well, they're explaining Celebrate Recovery. They're talking through it. And then Mike Colvin, many of you guys know Mike, he stood up and gave his testimony. And Mike, even back then, he had a little gray, right? He had a little white hair. And I want to tell you, for those of you that have a little gray, I'm working on mine. I've got
a lot of gray.
I've got some, but I don't have as much as this guy here. But if you're worried about your gray hair, go to Africa. They love it over there. Yeah. They love it. They actually they're very good about their culture of respecting their elders. I think maybe we've lost a little bit of that here in the United States. But Mike Colvin, who they perceive, he's got some gray hair. They're like, oh, this guy's probably got it all together. And then Mike Colvin gives his testimony. And for those of you that heard Mike Colvin's testimony, you know what I'm talking about here. And it just hit him in the face, so much so that one of the elders in that church and that tribe got up and confessed alcoholism, something that he's never said in his life to anybody. But it was like, okay, if he can do it, then I can do it. And then what was born was Celebrate Recovery Kenya. And a really, really cool story there. Yeah. Anything else?
Very nice. No, we spent 3 nights there, and felt like we were settling in somewhere, for 3 nights. So we had a great time. We just had so many interesting things happen. There's a lot said these days there's a lot of talk about revival, what's going on in Kentucky, and there's a movie out right now that's the theme, the Jesus Revolution. Our retreat ministry here, you just hear it over and over again. God's moving. There's revival going on, and this happened in there too. We were sitting at dinner one night, and I walked out to go to the restroom, and there was a table of young white people there, and they were young. I mean, really young,
like college age.
Yeah. And so they just smiled at me when I walked by, and then we walked back in there, and I forgot about them. And then after a bit, they got up and come in there, and they said, we heard you talking about Jesus, and we just got to come over here. And so they started telling us.
They admitted we were eavesdropping.
Yeah, they said we were eavesdropping.
But you were talking about Jesus, so we couldn't help it.
Yeah, 3 of them were from Australia, and 1 was from Germany. But they were on fire for Jesus. They were sharing their faith in their
first. They were on their first mission trip. And we were there. We were there with some people there that had been there was a couple there that was with us that had lived in Kenya for 50 years, and so they said we just wanted to kind of sit and listen and see if there was anything that you could teach us. I was like, wow, what a humble posture to be in.
And the man that and his wife that had been there 51 years, Mike Kellett's dad had been his baseball coach when he was a little boy. He was raised up where Mike was raised up, and knew the Kelletts really well. But they'd been there 51 years in Kenya.
Mike, he said, yeah, we're from Pocahontas, Arkansas. I was like, I know somebody from Pocahontas. I was like, you ever heard of Mike Kellett? He's like, Ray Kellett was my baseball coach. I said, I'm sorry, man. I see why you moved to Africa.
But our brother Ken, one of the main reasons we chose to go at this time was to be with him as he goes. And the plan was to take his wife's ashes to Kenya because they'd lived so long there, and that was home to her. And that's where she wanted her ashes. That wasn't able to happen at this time. There was a lot more red tape than he thought, but he had already bought tickets and went on, and he was visiting people there. But Ken was at home there. If you know Ken Bolden, he's been here off and on through the years, and he was the World Radio Director for a while, did a great job. But there, it was just great to see him in his element and see how they loved on him and see the fruit of what he did all those years. And the neat thing about Kenya and so many of these other countries, Ghana too, is Americans don't need to be there anymore. You know, they've shared the gospel, and those guys have took it and just took off with it. And I mean, done some things far beyond anything we could do. Larry Bowles has a thing that says nobody can reach an Afghan like an Afghan. You know. And it's that way. Nobody can reach their people like they can. We have a Navajo guy in Tuba City. Nobody can reach the Navajos like another Navajo. That's just the way we are as people. And they have done that well. The American missionaries that went there did such a great job that they don't even need to be there anymore. And so we just had fantastic.
Yeah, it was really an honor to be able to bless Ken Bolden, which if you know Ken Bolden, he was, like Robert said, he was a former world radio director from 2003 to 2009, and has dedicated, he and Ann dedicated their lives to mission work. And this was kind of a coming home for him. And so for Robert and I to get to be there and participate in honoring him, it was fun to see some guys who had actually been taught by him as children, and they're grown adults now, and giving honor to whom honor is due. So we're grateful that we got to tag along with Kenny B, as we call him. And but I want to go back, Cliff. I want to go back one slide and talk about these two right here. So this is Charles and Joyce Chariot. As Robert mentioned, Charles is our East Africa ambassador. He's been involved with us for over a decade now. And when we talk about discipleship, this is a guy that I think about discipleship. He's a quiet leader. You know, I'm kind of loud. You know, I'm a big personality. You know, but Charles is the opposite. He's quiet. He likes to stand in the background, but he's got his hand in everything. But what he does is he empowers other people on his team to step up and lead, and he's not intimidated by that. You know, I think a lot of us sometimes we get in the spot where we're intimidated by other leadership. You know, we want to be great, and we want to be so great that others can't be great with us. But what we don't realize is that when we empower others to be great in the kingdom, the tide raises all boats. And really what happens is the glory goes to Jesus. And when he is shown to be great, we all get to participate in his glory and his honor and his greatness. And that's what I see in Charles. Charles is just worried. If he's worried about anything, he's worried about the nation of Kenya knowing the name of Jesus. And he does that by discipling and teaching and giving opportunity to everybody, young and old, male and female. He wants everybody to be just on fire and unashamed of the gospel. And so he gives those opportunities. He sometimes you go to certain places and it just kind of becomes, that guy, his show. It was evident that this was all about Jesus Christ, and it didn't matter who was carrying and what. It was just a matter of we're all going to come together and worship our Father, worship our Creator. And Charles, you can see, like, I like this picture. A lot of times when you go internationally, everybody, when you ask for a picture, they're very stoic, just they don't like to smile very much. It's kind of hard to get them, but I tried to had to poke at him a little bit to get this candid shot. But I just love this. This is really his natural posture. He's just this. That's who he is, and he just he loves Jesus, and he loves the people of Jesus, and you know, it was great to be with him because we talk about this a lot. He was here in 2019, I think. We got to spend a lot of time with him and really enjoyed our time. But you're never you're your most self when you're at home, and so to see him in his element was really awesome. We got to see him. We see where they do their radio program. They got to see what relief ministries they do. So Charles is involved in a lot of relief projects because in Kenya, just about every year there's a famine, and you know you almost get desensitized to it because it's every year, right? Right now they're entering the rainy season. It should be good, but in that rainy season there's also going to be flooding, and so he's constantly working with his community to provide relief, to provide hope, and to show people who Jesus is.
This was my third trip to Kenya, and one time I was there, I said, he was talking about something about beauty, and I said, well, what makes a beautiful woman in Kenya? He said, she has a gap in her teeth and big thighs. And she's got a gap in her teeth, if you notice that. So I thought, well, when I met his wife, I thought, well, you're a good man. Yeah. You're a good man, so.
Well, and also the one of the things that we saw here was, this is Joyce, his wife, and you know, a lot of times we go and we visit with Charles, or we visit with Isaac or Sam or George, and these are our partners, right? But there's always a Mrs., right? Mm-hmm. In fact, our nickname to her was Mrs. Ambassador. That's what she's like. I'm Mrs. Ambassador. Mm-hmm. But that's real, man. In any ministry situation, there's usually a good woman behind that is ministering, not only in that same ministry, but whether it's to the women or in some other form or facet. Ken talks about this when they lived in Liberia. He would go out into the bush and minister to these very rural communities. And one of the things he realized was that Ann would stay back and cook dinner and make sure that when they came back, everybody in the ministry was fed. But he didn't really put it together until he realized that it's not just cooking dinner. Like, have you guys made Thanksgiving dinner? No one here makes Thanksgiving dinner? You guys all order it in? Okay, thank you. You've made Thanksgiving dinner. How long does that take? All day, right? Why? Why is it all day? You're feeding a lot of people, one. You're probably getting fresh supplies. You're cooking a lot. You're having to cook multiple dishes, but also you're having to like maybe go get something that day and bring it back. Like Ann would do this every day. Every day, she would basically cook the equivalent of Thanksgiving dinner every day. And you kind of like that. Sometimes that gets overlooked. Like it's a small. That's not a small thing. That's not a small thing. And I don't want to. There's a lot more going on than just cooking dinner. This is a small example. But the women of Kenya, whether it was Joyce or whether it was Sophie running a CR back in, she's in Kisii or Mombasa? She was in Kisii. In Kisii. She was in Nakuru town. Okay. But either way, the women are not just taking a back seat. They're submissive in their leadership as well, but there are things happening there that will fire you up, and we're just so grateful that we got to see it, encourage them. We left encouraged, and we wanted to share. We want to take this time with you guys to let you know that Whites Ferry Road East is healthy, alive, and well.
Yeah, I know mission reports are sometimes like watching other people's home movies. You know, you get a little bored. Hopefully that hadn't been the case here tonight. You can tell we're excited about this. One thing I want to say before I leave is that, our One Kingdom ministry, what was originally World Radio and Relief, were led by some really, really good men. Some of them have gone on to be with Jesus. But I'm thankful for this kid right here. this man. He's not a kid. He's a man. But he's young. He's got a lot of energy. And when wherever he goes, people know that he loves them. It's not fake. It's not phony. It's genuine. He's got a heart as big as he's just a big-hearted, good man. So I'm thankful to be partnered with him. Thankful for what he's doing through Jesus. And I just appreciate it. I'm always saying, hey, let's just stay humble, okay? And he said, that's right, Papa Bear, let's stay humble. So we have to, do that with each other. And I think we as humans always have to do that with each other. And so I just want you to know that this ministry's in good hand for a while. And I love this guy. He's a special fellow. So, yeah, well, for a prayer. Father, I thank you so much for this church. That's just, it's our family. And Father, it's changed a lot through the years, over the 50 years I've been here. And a lot of different good leaderships that have gone on I miss. But Father, I thank you for these young men and women that you are raising up to just do things even better. And I'm thankful to be able to watch them and to serve with them, have a little part in all this. So Father, I pray a special blessing on Ryan, his wife, and his children. I thank you for the rest of our team, for good leadership with Mike and his wisdom, and for Aaron and Derek and Kyle and Beverly. Just pray blessings on every one of them, and thank you so much for them. Father, again, thank you for this church, because without them, none of this happens. But Father, even more than that, without you and without your opening the doors, none of this would happen. So thank you for counting on us to do this and having faith and trust in us. I pray, Father, our faith and trust will always be in you. In Jesus' name, amen.
All my words fall short. I've got nothing new. How could I express all my gratitude? I could sing these songs as I often do, but every song must end, and you never do. So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again, 'cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. I've got one response, I've got just one move. With my arms stretched wide, I will worship you. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again, 'cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. Ooh. on, my soul. Don't you get shy on me, lift up your song. 'Cause you've got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Come on, my soul. Don't you get shy on me, lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. I said, come on, my soul. Don't you get shy on me, lift up your song. You got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. So I throw up my hands, praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. Now come on, my soul. Don't you get shy on me, lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. I said, come on, my soul. Don't you get shy on me, lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. You are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. Let's sing it again. You are worthy of it all. You are worthy of it all. For from you are all things, and to you are all things. You deserve the glory. Sing it out, church, tonight. You're